Hey friends, do you like my sweatshirt? This is my favorite sweatshirt that I own. This week's garden update is going to be a little all over the place because instead of just doing a big walkthrough showing you everything I'd done, I took you along all week as I worked on various projects for the garden, and it was just a lot of little things. So over the course of this video, I'm going to change clothes a bunch of times and be a little bit all over the place because that was just kind of how this week was in the garden. It was lots of small projects to get everything to the point where I can start to plant, topping off all of the garden beds with compost and worm castings and coconut coir, finishing the pollinator garden, touching up paint, planting our citrus tree, planting a couple other things, moving some pots around. What else? Oh, and sitting down and actually planning out where everything was gonna go. I also was struggling a little bit in mentally accepting where the garden is now on the way to, my imagination and where I want it to be one day. I started thinking about what is my purpose here? Why am I doing this? And it's a combination of factors. I want to spend time connecting and communing with the land. I want to be in nature, and gardening is just a great way to have something that calls you outside daily. I actually was born in Florida and I've lived here all my life, and while I don't feel any sense of like this is not my ancestors' land, I do want to feel connected to it. I do feel connected to the way that Florida summer storms smell, or to the way that our dirt is sandy. It feels very much rooted to me because I've grown up around it, and now it feels so grounding, to pay attention to these things. So I was thinking about why I garden. It's because of that. It's because I want my kids to learn their connection. I want them to understand that food and provisions don't just magically show up at their door, that there is a interplay at work between us and the earth, that they can find their sense of wonder in nature, that they can find a sense of something greater than themselves, that they can connect to their intuition, then they can have a respect for other living creatures and organisms as well by doing this sort of thing. That's a big part of it for me. And building something that is beautiful and that I love. I love to build things. I love to build beautiful things. And holistically, of course, to grow more nutrient-dense food for myself and my family, and also just to create these better habits of enjoying fresh produce and fresh herbs and teaching our taste buds what they taste like when they're not, shipped for weeks and sitting in grocery stores and canned and frozen and all those things. So it's multi-layered and multi-tiered. And I know in the past, gardens have gone through lots of iterations, from survival to, a way of life, to victory gardens, to, purely hobby or aesthetic. And mine is kind of a mix of, this is my church, this is my spirituality, this is my connection, this is my way of reclaiming my sense of connection to my own intuition and to the earth and my place in it and my role in the interplay. It forces me to get off my screen, to get outside, to pay attention to small things, to care. And I think that even if it's not, the daydream that sometimes can be induced by me scrolling Instagram or even watching YouTube videos and wishing that I had this cottagecore, homesteady, spiritual, witchy farmer vibe that I just don't have. I hope that by sharing this journey with you guys and being open about these challenges of how do I cultivate these more peaceful moments, these slower moments, these more intentional moments, these connective moments that can feel old or spiritual in the midst of a modern, very average American life. How do we bridge those things? Is there a way to reclaim this sense of connection and wonder when we live in the suburbs? Is there a way to make things sacred when we live in this modern, crazy busy world? I think there is. I really think there is. And I'm gonna keep trying to find it and keep sharing it with you guys. So thanks for being here. Hey friends, it is Saturday and I have a little bit of break while my kids are playing with the neighbor friends. So I figured I would come out here and work on my repurposing of the fence posts for my raised flower bed pollinator garden. I don't exactly know how I'm gonna be building it yet. So I'm not really filming a tutorial by any means, because I'm just gonna kind of figure it out as I go, and just figured I'd let you watch the chaos. And I think I might also put the compost and the worm castings in. I decided not to test the soil until after I do that and then really water everything in, and then I'll test it and see where we're at. So come along. So I finished cutting the wood and I'm laying it down, and it's just the absolute perfect size. What I don't love about it, and I knew this was gonna be a problem, but it's so visually tilted. I'm going to have to figure out something to do to make it visually level, because it's gonna drive me crazy. I am attempting to level this ground flower bed as best I can with a few paver bricks. Then I'm going to create a bottom, that way the dirt doesn't come out, using this landscaping fabric, staple gunning it to the inside. And I think that'll work. Then I have to see if I have any more white paint. There, it already looks a lot better visually. I think we're almost there. Also, you guys, I'm listening to braiding sweetgrass on Audible while I'm doing this. I'm like having a full moment. I just want to live in this book. It's so good. It's like just putting words to a lot of the feelings I've always had. And I'm in the beginning of the book, but she talks about this word for the energy that brings mushrooms up out of the ground. And I laughed because I actually have that as a tattoo, but from a different language. So she's talking about indigenous people creating this word. And this is actually a Nordic rune, that the idea behind that symbol is the energy that brings plants up through cracks in the rocks. It's like the same concept of this life force energy of, if there's a will, there's a way, like this just energy that makes things grow and happen. And so I was just smiling as I was listening to the book because I felt such a deep connection with it. She's also talking about ceremony and how ceremony connects us to a thing. And I love that a lot because I'm someone who likes to make meaning out of things and to search for meaning in things. And to feel like I'm in ceremonies with my garden and with the entire process has been something that has happened really naturally and intuitively to me. And I've always kind of kept to myself about it because I thought maybe it was a little weird, but hearing her talk about it made me feel so much more natural and aligned and like, oh, that's not weird. That's just the way that it naturally is. Like, I talk to my garden and I talk to the plants and I like pet them and I thank them when I harvest leaves off of them. And as I'm cooking, when I'm using the herbs, I like close my eyes and I think about gratitude and I think about like the love that I put into the garden and the energy that the sun put into the garden and all of the plants and microbiomes and earthworms and creatures that had to work together to give me this nourishing thing. And I know it might sound weird, but it becomes almost like a ritual, like a ceremony to kind of slow down and enjoy all of it and to kind of commune with the garden, and she's in the book talking about how in their native language they would talk about animals and plants as if they were living beings. Instead of saying it, they would say they, and how in English it was hard for her because you only use they kind of pronouns with humans. In animals it's always it, and plants and insects it's always it, and like bodies of water are it, not they. And how much it would change our perspectives if we thought about them as they, like strawberries as they, or herbs as they, or the birds as they, or the water as they. And I was just like, so beautiful. Like, it's just resonating so deeply with me. So I'm having a whole moment while I'm gardening, and if you feel that same way about anything, then you should pick up the book because it's just beautiful. All right, so today I came out here and I worked on the 4x4 raised bed. I don't know if I like it. I also painted it and got white paint all over my black yoga pants. So I'm killing it today. I'll show you. I think the problem is the violas. I think that's what it is. I might need to move them. All right, I couldn't leave well enough alone, and so I ended up fiddling with the garden even more, and what I ended up doing was taking all the violas out of the pollinator bed and putting them in their own little pot, along with a fairy door and my daughter's shovel, and that is now her special viola pot. She is so excited that those flowers are edible and that we're going to be able to grow them and use them on top of cupcakes and cookies and all that kind of stuff. So I'll show you. Okay, so now Percy has her own little viola garden, and it's so cute. And I also planted our citrus, the orange citrus my son got me. I decided not to put it in the ground for now because I just can't commit to a location. So it's in this giant, I think it's a 40-gallon barrel, and in this spot right here at the very edge of the garden, which I'm really excited about. I also bought a bunch of these beautiful marigolds because they were a variety that I don't see often here in Florida. And I'm probably just gonna do one in each bed as a form of natural insects management. And then I didn't record it, we were having way too much fun, but my daughter and I took out a bunch of our seeds, flower seeds, and we just willy-nilly sprinkled them all over. So this bed is going to be really fun now to see what comes up. It has sunflowers, nasturtiums, cosmos, zinnias, and some different herbs, and then the big ones coming out are some local Florida milkweed that I repotted for our butterflies. So we've got milkweed, we've got dill for the butterflies, and then a ton of flowers that are just gonna come up like crazy. There's no rhyme or reason in this bed. Oh, I also planted some garden sage. So this one's gonna be the most fun experiment. I'm not sure I've ever had as much fun planting seeds as we did with this one. You can even see some of them are just like thrown on top of the soil. Should probably push them down a little bit. Okay, I need to tell you one quick story, and I'm sure I'll do like a whole thing on this at some point. But when we first moved into this house, this was like such a dream come true. My husband and I have been self-employed creatives and online entrepreneurs our whole adult life. And because of that, we just kind of gotten in our head that we would never be able to buy a house, that it would just be like too expensive or too hard to prove our income or whatever. And so when we moved into this house, which is on a lake, which is like such a dream in Central Florida, it was a dream come true. And I was like a Disney princess singing all the time. Like that was the energy I brought. And when we moved in, I would just sit out here in the backyard, and there's this one really tall tree that's down by the water. It's the only tree that we own on our property, and so many birds would come to it. And I would come out and I would be super still, and I'd bring like our camera and my husband's like telephoto nature lens, and I would just like use it like a telescope to look at all the birds, and I would take pictures of them, and so many different kinds would migrate through, and I loved it. And then with construction projects happening on both sides of our house, and I don't know what happened. I don't know if I just stopped noticing them or if they really did go away, but like in the depths of some of my hardest years, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2021, the birds, it felt like they vanished. And I was really sad about it because they brought me so much joy, and I felt like they were kind of like the hope and the celebration of us getting this home and getting to this point in our life. And there were just hardly any birds out here anymore. And it was crazy because the other day I was out here and I was moving garden stuff, and all of a sudden there was all this chirping, and I looked down to the tree at the water, and it had, no joke, at least 10 different types of birds in it. And I just sat down here on the weed guard and I stared at it, and I was like, tears coming out of my eyes. I was just like overwhelmed with emotion and gratitude. And I went inside and I texted my two best friends. I was like, the birds are back. And I'm sure they were like, oh, okay. Like what? Like me, I was like so in it, you know, and like these people just living their lives, they have no idea what I'm talking about. So I had to explain to them like the significance and the metaphor and what it meant to me. But it's crazy because every day that I've been out here doing stuff in the garden, I've seen so many birds, and they'll like land on the corners of the garden. I know it's going to be a problem once I actually start growing things and they're eating it. So I'm going to have to remember this gratitude later, but I will just watch them, and it just fills me with so much joy and excitement. It felt like one of those like signs. It felt like a sign that I was on the right track, that this is where we're supposed to be in life, that we're approaching things with the right mentality, that we're past this point of aloneness or desolation, or I don't know. In my life, I had kind of felt like the universe had abandoned me in a way, that I was just like drudging through these hard times over and over and over again. I'm sure so many of you guys have felt that. And to have the birds gone, it felt like, where'd you guys go? You know, it felt like we were so alone to go through all of it. And so when they came back, it just felt like, okay, everything's okay. Everything's, you know, on the upswing again. And I just saw like this really beautiful bird with yellow stripes that's, you know, not native to here. So they must be migrating through, fly by as I was filming, and it reminded me of it. And I hope to film some of the birds to show you guys because they're so special to me. I was already telling my husband, I was like, be prepared for the amount of bird feeders that are gonna happen in this backyard as this garden grows. I want them everywhere because I just want birds like all over. I want to bring them here. I want them to love it here and feel as good about it as I do. And then I'll fight off them eating all of my things later. I'll cross that bridge when we get there. I'm happy to share some of my produce if it brings the birds to my yard, so I can just revel in their beauty and wonder of it all. So anyway, just a quick little aside, but I can't wait to show you how the birds came back. So here's where we're at. It is coming along, and it feels really good to see it starting to have things in it, even if it's only a few flowers and seeds. So this is what I do to plan where I'm gonna plant stuff in the garden.